Welcome back to the Truth Factory. Let's get into the news. Apple diversity chief Denise Young-Smith has resigned after making a controversial comment. And by resigned, I mean they forced her to quit. And what was the controversial statement that she made? There can be 12 blue-eyed, blonde men in a room, and they're going to be diverse too, because they're going to bring different life experience and life perspective to the conversation. So this woman had the audacity to insinuate that diversity can still exist among a group of white men. If anything, white people should be considered more diverse, since white is all the colors combined. This story has a lot of parallels to the Google memo issue, except this is coming from a woman of color, so it's harder for them to know how to frame this appropriately. Because apparently her requirements for her job at Apple were to exclude white straight males and to be sexist and racist. Denise Smith was later forced to apologize for her inclusive remarks by saying that her comments were not representative of how I think about diversity or how Apple sees it. For that, I'm sorry. And the story is even more interesting when you Google who the top Apple employees are. We have Tim Cook, the chief executive officer, white guy, the senior vice president, white girl, Eddie Q, white guy, white guy, white guy, white guy, white guy, white guy, and of course Apple's founder, a white guy. So the people who run Apple are all white and mostly male. And assuming that they're lefties, like all of Silicon Valley, they're probably riddled with white guilt and hate themselves for their success. So they promote a black female in their company to the position of chief of diversity to promote what I'm assuming is affirmative action in the workplace and to chastise white males. And then she does the opposite of that by saying white males are also human and it's okay to be white. This upsets the white males that are in charge of everything and they force her to apologize for not being racist. If Apple was a rational company, they would allow her to resign and then thank her, as she has now shown that everyone is equally as important and that the job of diversity chief is no longer needed, nor was it ever needed. But instead, they're going to replace her with this white woman who's probably also riddled with white guilt, so they never had the issue again with including white people. Again, just to recap how crazy this story is. A bunch of rich white people hate white people, so they hire a black woman to promote diversity. The black woman doesn't hate white people, so then they force her to apologize and step down, and then they replace her with another white woman who hates white people. What a great system. And that about sums up where we're at with race relations in our country today. And anyone who wants to have a realistic conversation about that is replaced or silenced. Speaking of silenced, Twitter has now shut down a few right-wing accounts like Baked Alaska and LA Werewolf. It's also removed a few of their blue check marks from some right-wing voices. And this isn't surprising to me at all. A few months ago, when I defended alt-right Andrew Anglin from having his extreme website scrubbed from the internet, this is what I was talking about. They will always start with the most extreme people that nobody wants to defend, and then they'll slowly move the goalposts to the left to silence anyone who isn't Keith Olbermann. And I think this move correlates with the fact that the majority shareholder of Twitter is a Saudi prince that was arrested, and that Twitter also teamed up with the ADL in October to police hate speech on their platform. In fact, effective December 18, 2017, Twitter will be banning anyone with hate symbols on their profile, which really just means Pepe the Frog. And the creepiest part is they'll also be monitoring your activity on and off the platform, which really shouldn't be legal, and I'm not even sure it is. The rules read, you also may not affiliate with organizations, whether by their own statements or activity on and off the platform, use or promote violence against civilians to further their causes. I'm not sure if that means that you're an active member in a group that promotes violence, or if they're actually able to track your online activity when visiting certain websites. Either way, I highly doubt that they're talking about members of Antifa or Black Lives Matter. And no website should have this kind of power. But if Twitter wants to go to war and they want to destroy their platform, then great. You'll just see an influx of people moving to Gab and 4chan. And all of this is happening as everyone is being exposed for being a total pervert. It's not surprising that people in Hollywood and politicians are depraved. I mean, how do you think they got their jobs? And although it does seem that this is more prevalent among Democrats, I don't think this is a partisan issue. This isn't the Democratic Party versus the Republican Party. This is the pizza party here. Dennis Hastert is a good example of this. He was a Republican congressman whose educational background was being a high school wrestling coach who molested little boys. guys. So how does a high school wrestling coach become a congressman? We'll look at his friends, Tony and John Podesta. In an email to a high-ranking member of Goldman Sachs about Dennis Hastert allegations, John wrote, "Might be time for Denny to vanish to an undisclosed Japanese island. These depraved lizards help other disgusting lizards into positions of power, knowing that they'll never expose each other's secrets and they'll have this control over each other. This means that we're just scratching at the floodgates of the swamp with pervy allegations of people like Franken, Spacey, and Weinstein. And with everyone talking about this now is the time to finally expose the Clintons, the Podestas, and blow the Pizzagates wide open." Alright guys, that's the show for tonight. I have a link to my Patreon if you want to support me there. I also have a link to my Twitter, which I don't know how much longer that's going to exist because I'm pretty bad at censoring my true feelings. Have a great night, guys. Meow.